Giant CO2 lasers. You see them, you like them, you want one, but you want to know if you buy one, will you get your money back? In this video, I'm going to give you a few ways to make money using a giant CO2 laser. So most of the people I know interested in lasers start out with a smaller laser, like a diode laser, and they do it just kind of for fun, and then it turns into more of a kind of like side hustle, and they realize the limitations that may come with that, and they're looking to get into something bigger. But with a bigger, more powerful laser comes a larger price tag and the ability to maybe recoup all of that investment starts to look a little bit smaller, depending on the things that you kind of do. There are a handful of people I have met that just thought, hey, I want to buy a laser. I want to do it one time. I want to do it one time right. And they go big and they kind of decide I'll figure out the money aspect later. But like I said before, this video is to kind of say, what are those avenues to making your money back or making any sort of profit when you get a larger laser? I'm going to break these down into two groups. One is going to be the customer facing group, which is the most common, most popular one everybody is very familiar with, and the non-customer facing concept that you still have maybe a client that you work with, but you're not dealing with the public as a whole, because sometimes you don't like how people are peopling. Also, at the end of the video, we will talk a little bit about pricing and how to price. So stay tuned, make it to the end for that. So customer facing. This is the direct-to-consumer approach, the one everybody's familiar with. You walk into a store, you say, hey, I like that thing, I want to buy it, and you're off to the races. So in a business like lasering, if you already have a pre-established business, so, you know, I do woodworking, I know a lot of woodworkers, this is the area in which the laser becomes a add-on or a upsell, because now you can offer specific customization. So let's say you do woodworking and you do cutting boards. So let's say that $150 cutting board you would normally sell, you may be able to sell now for $175, because now you can add names or family recipes or all those customization aspects. And that's where, you know, the direct to consumer approach happens. Next in that arena would be something like Etsy. Now, I've heard a lot of, you know, good and bad of Etsy being there. But this is one of the things where if you make things and you have a channel and an avenue to put them out there, this is a way to kind of put your product out there, if you already have that concept in mind, to start to get it out to the world and to sell it to the masses. You know, the thing with Etsy is that Etsy takes a percentage, you have margins, and so now you have to get into the how much can I sell this and start to reinvest back into the initial purchase, and what's me breaking even on the platform. And that comes with its own inherent, you know, risk and balancing act as it is when you're dealing on a platform like that. Next up is craft fairs. This is one that's generally seasonal, but some people who have been doing this for a while, that's all they gear for. They gear for the seasonal craft fair. They stock up on merchandise all year long. You know, they do small sales here. There's a spring craft fair. There's a summer one. Then you get into your holiday season, and that's where they really make their money, because they've been working all year long to establish this reputation and this business model, so that when you go, it's like, hey, this is it. This is my inventory. This is what I have. And that's their yearly goal, is to make, you know, $5, 10, maybe, you know, $12,000 in a seasonal crafts fair. Once again, it depends on your business model, but these are the customer facing ways to try to bring in customers, bring in new clientele, and, you know, put more money back into the initial purchase of a machine of this size. So yes, I can say, hey, you bought the big laser, you can sell that at a crafts fair, or you can sell it to customers, or, you know, put it on Etsy. But how do you develop that customer base for any of those platforms to work. And love it or hate it, the easiest option is social media. And I'm not talking about the dancing and singing and all that kind of stuff, social media. A lot of the people I know, what they do is they make their product, whether it's a cutting board or a table, or they're engraving tumblers and special things. And all they do is they show that they have the capabilities to do these specialized tasks. And in my own personal experience, a lot of the stuff that I show online, I don't necessarily get people who necessarily want to buy that thing, but because I have a laser and a CNC machine and other things like that, they know that I have the equipment and the capabilities to bring whatever's in their head to fruition. I showed myself working with the rotary on the laser, and I had somebody ask me, well, can you engrave a recipe on a rolling pin? Because it also, Stumbler is like, yeah. So my one video about engraving a cup turned into a, customer who wants a custom engraved rolling pin. I've done other things where I've made special coasters and other, you know, smaller items, and people go, oh, can you do this custom specialized thing for me? Now, that does lead to a lot of one-offs, but sometimes those one-offs lead to another order and another order because you, once again, you visualize, you show it on social media, and people go, oh, I love that, I want that, or I want something similar. So, you are your own hype man when it comes to taking a laser business to the next level. Because if you don't put in the effort to promote your business, why would anybody else? Now, on the other hand, there are people who are like, yeah, I know customers drive business, but I don't want to deal with boxing up all these orders and shipping them all over the place and doing all this stuff. But I do want to create, and I do want the laser, and I want to make this a thriving business. This is where non-customer facing manufacturing comes into place. So, there are multiple avenues, and this once again requires legwork. But what it does is it limits from you having to deal with a clientele of, hundreds of people. You're dealing with a clientele of maybe like 5 or 6 different businesses or companies, and they deal out with the, thousands and thousands of other people. So let me break it down. So this is your standard 20-ounce tumbler. You probably have some in your house. Maybe you have a lot of them in your house, half filled with water or some other various liquid in various stages of consumption. Who knows? Anyway, this tumbler is potentially the gateway to a next business deal. How? One, you can put your logo or a company's logo on this tumbler, and then you have to, this is where the self-promotion comes in, but you can go into a small business and say, hey, I'm local, small business. I am doing custom manufacturing and seeing if, for your next anniversary party, holiday party, uh, employee appreciation event, if you would like to order some of these. Doing that puts you in connection with one person, maybe a manager, hiring manager, marketing, whoever, but it puts you in direct line of contact with one person who will then work out to the distribution to an entire company. And this is the kind of setup that you can apply across a wide range of fields or businesses. It really just takes the effort of finding a business that has a decent sized employee roster, we'll say 50 to 100. Sometimes you can do more if you have the capacity to crank out a lot of orders. But it's putting yourself out there to say, knock on some doors and say, hey, I have a cool product. You have a company. I know you guys do small knickknacks, appreciation gifts, things of that nature. I'd like to be your vendor. Because with the laser, there are tons of opportunities to make awards, plaques, engraving on, powder coated metal, to do all these sort of custom things specific to that company. And everybody loves personalization. The more you can make it direct to that business, the more that they are inclined to do it. And sometimes as a smaller business, you can come in at a price point that, one, does not put you at a deficit just to get the business. Never put yourself at a deficit just to get the business. You know, always charge for your materials, always charge for your time, and then you have your markup of which should be your margin and your profit. But with that in mind, you should be able to do all of those, hit all of those markers, and still make a decent profit and develop a client in which you're dealing with a one-to-one connection who then distributes it out to the masses. Next up, we have small scale manufacturing. So small scale manufacturing is essentially where you're taking either your idea or somebody else's concept of a small product, and all you do is mass produce the blanks or templates or whatever it is for that person. They give you money, you give them the mass cutout parts. They handle all the marketing and sales and everything else in the background. You are literally just the human and the machine putting in work. The benefit to that is, once again, you're dealing with just a person. You're dealing with a repeatable business, which means you're not really changing your setup too much. You're really just cranking out the same thing over and over again, unless they have variations that you work out. But you're usually batch processing a lot, which just makes your time more efficient because you're literally putting in the sheet good, letting it run, putting it out. And the same thing can be done for tumblers, ornaments, anything that goes into the crafts fairs or anything like that. But the small scale manufacturing is the gateway to, like I said, that one-to-one communication, that single line of in connection, so that you're not dealing with necessarily the masses. Now, sometimes finding the person who's in that arena is a little bit trickier. So this is where it really comes to you to engage your community, whether it's your online community or your local community, to just kind of put it out there as like, hey, I have the tools to do X, Y, and Z, and you let people kind of present the idea to you. They're like, oh, well, you know, there's this one part that's really hard to find. It's about yay big, yay back. Can your laser cut that? And usually, as long as it's not metal, yeah, you have a fairly good chance of it. But here is a product that is developed by some friends of mine. It is a paint can holder. This idea was a idea and a joint idea between two creators. One guy has the ability to make this on, you know, a regular scale at home, but the other gentleman is able to produce this on a larger scale because they have larger machines, they have stronger lasers, and they're able to do a batch run in a small scale manufacturing setup. Like I said, it's a collaboration between two different people, the person with the idea and the product, the person with the machinery and the ability to crank these out faster and efficiently. And that's where your profit margins kind of kick in. Like I said, it's harder to necessarily find those people because you have to find the people who have the product, have the idea already, and are looking to scale up. But a lot of those people put it out there and they say, hey, I'm a little backed up right now. You know, I got a lot of orders coming in. It's taking me a little longer to get to them. And go like, hey, what about we work together? I can speed it up on my machine. You get the product out faster. We can make blanks. We can make templates. I just send you one big batch order. You're good to go. From there, you're just processing orders. Like I said, it's a finer niche to get into, but the profit and we'll say the reduction in stress is way higher because, like I said, the whole point of dealing with non-customer facing or small scale manufacturing is really limiting your scope to dealing with a smaller group of people who have a wider scope of product that you can reproduce multiple times, and you're not dealing with the consumer base as a whole. Welcome to the pricing section for those of you who, you know, skipped ahead to this part. So pricing. Pricing goes in many different ways. There's a lot of ways to price out your products. There's lots of ways to there are a lot of ways to price out your time. The key things I want to highlight here is one, design time. Design time is somebody says, hey, can you put my name on this tumbler? This is the font that I like. This is the sizing that I like. All those things take time to do. And a lot of people tend to skip over that. They may spend 15, 20 minutes working on a design, getting it approved. That takes more time to then finally spend, 5 minutes engraving it on a tumbler and cleaning it up. And it really doesn't feel like it all, kind of pays off because a lot of people forget to add in your design time. So never forget to add in your design time. Next, pricing for the actual lasering. A lot of people give like rough round numbers. Some people says for this project, they'll do it as a whole project in itself, or they do it per minute. I usually aim around the at least $1 per minute mark for the time the machine is actually running. So the pricing would be, let's say if I was doing a tumbler, it's the cost of the tumbler, my design time, and then the timing for how long the machine is actually running. If they're providing the tumbler, then you go down to just the design time and the machine run time, so forth and so on. So, those things all kind of factor into your time is valuable. So no matter what the machine does, what you do, the time you put into a project, it's valuable and it all matters. So a lot of people just go, oh, well, I'm doing it on the weekend. It didn't really take me that long. It's really not the point. The point is that becomes a gateway for you to shortchanging yourself on other things that will require more of your time. So if you set a baseline now of my design time costs money, my machine time costs money, and packing, shipping, all that, costs money. If you start with that framework, you really never fully shortchange yourself, and you leave yourself time in there to, if you want to offer a discount. The discount can come off the machine time. The discount can come, maybe you got the product, the tumbler or the plywood or whatever you're cutting was on sale, and you go, hey, cool, I'll pass some of those savings on to you because I'm in a good mood. But always remember, your time is valuable. So if you get a batch job and you're cutting out a bunch of pieces of, let's say you're doing Christmas ornaments. So you're cutting out a huge stack of little round Christmas ornaments with custom engravings or regular generic engravings on them. You go, well, how do I price that out? Well, once again, you're pricing for the piece of the material. So how much does that piece of plywood or, whatever you're using going to cost you? You're going to price that out. Your design time to make your logo or the Christmas ornament apply to all 50 of those circles that you're cutting out. How much does that cost? You're going to price out the laser time. So how long is the laser going to run to cut out all of that material? And that's going to be your baseline to getting a number that should look, in my opinion, comfortable for what you're pricing out. And like I said, you can price out margins and say, hey, well, these are my base costs just to do the job. This is my margin. Like, this is the extra 10 to 15% that I definitely want to make because, sometimes you got to deal with taxes and stuff on the back end. But that's, this is the cost of doing business. This is your margin. Some margins will definitely be higher than others depending on what the job is. But like I said, if you start with a baseline, you're never really coming out of pocket, and you should always have a little bit extra because things happen. Sometimes there's a hiccup or something didn't get clamped down properly, and now the laser is overlapping stuff, and now you're out of a piece of material. So make sure you leave some cushion in whatever you're budgeting to account for things that could go wrong. Because a customer doesn't really want to hear at the end of the day of, well, why didn't my order get here on time? Well, because the laser went wonky and then I had to go to the store and this and that and the other thing. Or I have to charge you more money because I ran out of material. Now, you budget that into the job the first time, you have that cushion and you're allowed to, do that, do some extra work if you want to do extra work or not. But that's the kind of rough pricing model, is to make sure to calculate for your time, your material, your design time, your machine time, and whatever margin that you think will work for the market that you're in. Sometimes higher, sometimes lower, but make sure you get your margin, make sure you get paid, and have fun while you're doing it. All that being said, if you made it to the end, because I do appreciate your time, thank you for watching. I do have another video coming up about how I feel about my Aeon Mirror 9 1 year in. So stay tuned for that. That'll be coming out shortly. But until then, thank you, be safe, and appreciate you being here.